Welcome to Surgeon Syndicate. If you're paying attention, you know that you only make money when you work. It might be great money, but it's dependent on you. The information on this podcast will help you solve that. We interview experts and provide analysis into financial freedom through commercial real estate. Why? To help physicians like you thrive. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Surgeon Syndicate. This is your host, Dr. Michael McManus, and we are here today with Dr. Vikram Raya. Vic, thank you for being here.
And Mike, thank you so much. So, Dr. Mike and the Surgeon Syndicate, thank you guys for having me. I'm really pumped and excited. We need more physician entrepreneurs, physician investors, and physicians just taking off the cape and putting on the entrepreneur hat.
Well, this is great to have Vic. Vic is a trained cardiologist and functional medicine physician. He's an international speaker, a high-performance coach, an avid real estate investor. Has been active in multifamily real estate investing since 2015. He's a founding partner and CEO at Viking Capital Investments. As a real estate private equity firm, Viking Capital is approaching 4,900 units and $720 million of acquisitions. Vikram has raised over $180 million in private equity from high net worth individuals, doctors, and other professionals around the country who want to achieve true wealth and diversify their income. Vikram was elected to the Forbes Business Council and was commemorated by U.S. Congressman Tim Connolly and Don Beyer into the Congressional Record for excellence in entrepreneurship. Recently gave a keynote lecture at CNN headquarters in Atlanta with Dr. Oz on entrepreneurship, and is also the recipient of the prestigious Outstanding 50 Asian Americans in Business Award on Wall Street. Most recently, he's made the Inc. 5000 list of the fastest growing private equity companies in the U.S. That is a great bio and introduction, so thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm like, who are you talking about over there, man? But no, I appreciate the accolades, but it's really, I think we're all in it together. The goal is really, how do we, on this short time around the sun that we keep spinning around, what's the best use of our time? How do we live our true message? How do we, be there for our children and our families, and still do what we decided to do, which was, to be a physician and help the world. And then, realize that maybe our identity is not just tapped into the stethoscope, but it's perhaps we can expand that identity. And that's the last concept that I want to really focus on for the next couple of minutes. Having physicians expand their identity beyond that narrow definition that we were given in medical school and in training.
I mean, because it is so easy. You get into the tunnel, and to get through medical school, you kind of got to have tunnel vision, and we head down that tunnel, and then at some point we forget to look outside of it.
Yes, and our previous generations, there was limited opportunities, first of all, outside, and then actually in medicine was quite a great opportunity at that time inside. So it was okay to have that tunnel vision, I think, back then. And now with the disruption in medicine, with the lack of autonomy and sort of the plateauness of what people are seeing when they enter, after probably 5 to 10 years, they realize, oh, okay, I don't see much growth in where I'm going to be. And it's more of volume and rinse and repeat. And so I think, human beings are meant for certain type of emotions and needs. And Mike, you can probably agree with me on this. It's, we really have the need to grow. We have a need to contribute. We have a need to have certainty in our lives. We have a need also for variety. We have a need for love and connection, and we have a need for significance. And so I think by us sort of diving in, figuring out which one of those needs is the best for us, or which one of those needs is the one that drives us the most, and finding the right vehicle for those needs, I think that's the $1 million question.
I think it's an amazing question, because you started me thinking about I mean, I went through a period of burnout, and we've talked about it on the show, that you have more and more as docs now, we have all the responsibility still that doctors had 20, 30 years ago, but less and less control. And so it's kind of this thing pushed on us, and that can be a heavy weight to bear. How much do you see that as part of the people you're talking to and the docs you're working with as the push to do something different?
We have about 1,000 investors across our platform. I would say maybe a third to a half could be physicians in our Viking investor pool. And then, I've been on a lot of stages in the medical space as sort of a physician leader, physician entrepreneur. And, I'm currently actively coaching about 150 coaching clients all over the country. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing that you're suggesting. It is there is a dissatisfaction. There's some people even get to the extreme, like you said, a burnout of moral injury to their psyche of, what they thought they're going to get themselves into and what they got. Actually, they got sold, a false bill of goods, if you will, when they signed up for the profession, because they really did love the medicine for the love of the game, but all the other side anecdotes that are happening in medicine take away that love. And I think there's a movement now, and I think you're one of the leaders, Mike, in the movement, as well as some of the others out there that are saying, hey, physicians, there's other options on top of just medicine. And then no one's saying quit medicine, but be diversified in your income streams, keep pursuing your passions and hobbies, and cultivate a life that you love, and it's possible, but you have to peek your head out from the tortoise shell that we're all in, and say, hey, there is another world out there. And the way I like to do, sometimes I end my talks with a slide, and it has Morpheus from The Matrix, and he has the red pill and the blue pill. I forgot which one you're supposed to take or not supposed to take, but bottom line, I'm like, hey, physicians, let's get out of the matrix, take the red pill or something,
That's such a great analogy, because I was recently having a conversation with another doc who's been making this transition, and we talked about how so much of what we're taught that we're supposed to stay in our lane, and we're not supposed to do any self-promotion, and how even when he talked to his partners about advertising for their ENT practice, and they were like, we can't advertise. People come to us because we do a good job. And then the idea of putting yourself out there to raise capital or open another business almost gets frowned upon by the doctor community. It's like we're trained to be that way through medical school and residency. Do you, when you start talking to docs and coaching, do you find that they kind of have that? Like you feel like Seth Godin's book, This is Marketing, he talks about this is what people like us do, or this is what people like us don't do. That we're stuck in this world of, oh, this is how we're supposed to act, and we can't go do that stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to what you're saying, and a lot to unpack there, Mike. So I guess I want to start with a very simple concept all physicians need to pay attention to. It's called the Doctor's Lounge Mafia. So when you walk into the doctor's lounge, there's the big wigs of the hospital. There's usually the established physicians who judge, give unwarranted opinions or unasked opinions, and then sort of decide if you're cool enough to be one of the inner referring docs in the hospital, right? And these people have limited knowledge base, and it's interesting because younger physicians take advice from these people, but my mentor told me never take advice from someone who's not where you want to be. And a lot of these people are already miserable, these physicians. A lot of them are overweight, just to call them out a little bit. And they're disgruntled, they're angry. And besides them talking about the latest stock that they made money on, but then you never hear when they lose money the following week because they're just chasing stocks on CNBC, right? That's their investment strategy. And then maybe they're lucky enough to buy their own practice or the land underneath the practice. And so that's what's going for them. And then if they're old enough, maybe they exited to private equity on good terms. But anyone who's exited recently to private equity, that's more of a different type of handcuff. And so this is what's going on. And then most physicians, they have a financial advisor who doesn't really understand financial advice and puts them into stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and they're hoping and praying that they're going to have enough money to retire. And most physicians make between 200K to about, I don't know, on the high end, maybe it's 800K, let's say. So that's the range. Strong incomes, but poor allocation of those resources. And in all the free time they have, they're trying to get more certifications. Hey, as a cardiologist, let me get the echo certification, the nuclear certification, the cardiac CT certification, the cardiac MRI certification. Oh, level 1 cardiac cath, level 2 cardiac cath, and let me do EP certification.
So with all that time, it's just going into building. It's almost like fortifying your shell, and then getting out of it becomes that much harder.
We'll get back to our show in just a minute, but first I want to offer you an opportunity to accelerate your learning. My life changed, and my ability to start becoming work optional changed when I gained the people and the knowledge to start investing in commercial real estate. One of the key people there was Ash Patel, and joining his Invest Beyond Multifamily Mastermind. Well, that mastermind is no longer open, but for a fraction of the price, Ash has now made a course. And this is probably the most valuable set of information and quickest way to move along your learning curve. So if you are interested in actively investing in commercial real estate and retail and industrial and office, I would recommend this course to you. We're going to include a pre-sale link both in the show notes. It'll also be on the surgeonsyndicate.com website. And in your checkout, it'll save you another 1%. I know it's not a lot, but every little bit helps if you use the discount code Mike1487. If you're not interested in investing actively, give us a call here at Fortress Capital, and let's talk about what your goals are as a passive investor. But it's time to stop listening, start acting, and let's move your future forward.
So you talked a little bit when I was reading through your bio about how, when I look at you, is you've built this, this amazing company with Viking Capital and your Limitless MD brand and all the things you're doing. And it seems like this giant void. Well, he did that, but I can't do that. The limiting beliefs. So tell me a bit, about the journey from when you were you were 100% doc and you weren't satisfied, and what it took, maybe what somebody would do to start moving on to something more.
Absolutely. I want to share with the guys, you're seeing me at closer to the mid stage of my journey. You weren't there at the beginning. If you told me that this is going to happen for me, because I started practicing in 2011 in cardiology. After, it was a long road to get there. I didn't even match the first time I got in. I got 20 interviews to try to get into cardiology, and I didn't match, and I was devastated. And
I also didn't match the first time in urology. So there we go.
And then I was like, man, damn, should I consider going for my MBA? I was like, but then I had a thought that, look, a cardiologist can always do business, but an MBA guy can't do cardiology. So I was like, all right, let me just, and it was really important for me to pursue cardiology because I had 6 people in my family die of heart attacks. And little did I know that would also influence me to eventually go into functional medicine, which is a functional cardiology, which is essentially treating the root cause of disease. So I was wide-eyed, excited when I finally finished everything. And I was like, let's go. I'm super energized to be a cardiologist. It was a dream come true. I'm excited. When I started getting to the profession, I noticed that some physicians really loved what they were doing. Other ones were doing it as a monetary scheme to be able to live a reasonable life. And I noticed that some of the decision makings were influenced by which path that the physician chose to do. And I was like, I made a declaration. If I'm still relying on my medical income by the age of 40, something went terribly wrong. because I wanted to practice for the love of the medicine and not have anything. So I was like, all right, well, to do that, how do I do that? Well, I need to create income outside of medicine. That way, this is really a passion and not just a profession, you know?
Yeah.
And so I tried options trading, Mike, and I even had a coach, and I got my butt kicked. I mean, they were teaching me butterflies, they're teaching me all these advanced strategies, and my brain was like just whirling around. I was like, I don't know, I don't understand this. It doesn't make sense to me. And I'm sure some people are very successful in options, but the second thing I did was I asked myself, okay, I know a couple of millionaires out there. Let me ask them where they got their money from. And it was like real estate, real estate, real estate. Oh, I own my own business, real estate business. Okay. I didn't know that many people who traded their way to becoming a multimillionaire. So that gave me the first hint of what I needed to consider to start doing. Obviously, reading the Kiyosaki books, reading books about financial, investments, reading books about different things. I was like, okay, let me explore real estate. And I first started doing wholesaling, which was buying a home and trying to flip it. The problem was I was running a busy clinic, seeing 40 patients in clinic, and I was supposed to, in my lunch break, fax home lowballing home offers for this flipping homes in my lunch break. I'm like, this is not going to work. So then I was like, all right, let me try, fixing and flipping. But I was living in Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., where home prices were very expensive. I was making $225,000 in DC, Virginia as a cardiologist. And I'm like, dude, I can barely afford to pay my mortgage, my rent. How can I buy a property in this area where average home prices are between 200 to 400? So then I was like, all right, before I gave up, I was like, let me think about this. And I thought, okay, what if I don't have to just buy in my area? Maybe I can buy in Atlanta, where I grew up and I went to school there, and my dad's down there. So that's when I could find homes for $50,000, $60,000, $80,000. And so that's how I started my journey. To cut a long story short, I ended up picking up about 30 homes in a small portfolio. There's no equity because literally the money from one deal, any equity, I rolled it over to the next one, because I would do cash out refis. So there's zero equity in most of these properties, but I owned all of them and I was making a little bit of monthly cash flow. But I'm like, dude, how is this going to replace a six-figure cardiology salary? So that's when I heard about what your namesake, the Syndicate. I heard about syndicates. I heard about people pooling money together to buy larger properties, and it blew my mind. I went to a real estate investment meeting, and this guy from Boston comes down in his Bostonian accent, which I'm not going to try to repeat for your audience. And he's like, "Yeah, you can buy this." 150 unit, and then the investors pay you to buy it, and then you just raise the money, and boom, you're an owner, and in 3 to 5 years you sell it, and you're gonna get a couple of million out of it. I'm like, whoa, is that real? Is that legal? And so anyway, that launched the multifamily journey.
Would your comment there, is that legal? Because the first time that I pitched a deal to a colleague, just based upon the returns, that it was going to be a 15 to 20% annualized return, they were like, is that legal? Can you do that? Because it was just so outside of their spectrum.
Yeah. This may be a good time for your audience to get a book recommendation from me. So guys, we talked a little bit about theory at the beginning of the podcast. We're starting to get into some anecdotes and stories, but really there's messages behind all of this. But I really want you guys to pick up a book called The Holy Grail of Investing. Tony Robbins just released it with a guy named Chris Zook. And I heard both of these guys. I was in a meeting where both these guys were there. And it's interesting because they really start emphasizing alternative investing, right? And what that means is learning to invest in private real estate, which is what me and Mike do. There's private debt, there's private credit, there's sports investing. And I'm not talking about gambling on ESPN Bet. I'm talking about owning a piece of the Lakers or the Wizards or a baseball team as an institutional owner. And there's a way now we can get fractional ownership. And so there's all these different strategies. So it's a really good book. It's called, I think, The Holy Grail of Investing. So I highly recommend people pick it up.
That's great. So that's his newest book.
That's his newest book. And he's essentially saying that, you want to construct an asset allocation and a portfolio where you have exposure to multiple things. And Ray Dalio, the number one hedge fund investor of all time, his company manages, I think, a couple hundred billion. He essentially says that the quote unquote, the actual concept of the Holy Grail investing is this: if you can find 8 non-correlated assets that achieve a decent return, and you can define what that is for you, you can reduce your downside risk by 80%, 80. So
Wow.
that is just phenomenal. So what I've learned, I'm a real estate guy. You seem to be as well, Mike. It's great. I would love to start reallocating and diversifying. Even though I know real estate and real estate is going to be a good hub for me, I'm starting to, I'm going to put money in my business. I'm going to put money in real estate. I'm going to start putting money in private equity. I'm going to start putting money in stocks, bonds. I'm going to start creating a nice asset allocation, a portfolio that can really serve me throughout all the storms that can happen in the economy. So, I have a lot of friends now in the real estate space. If they're getting in now, you're in some of the best times ever. If you were in it 3 to 5 years ago, you may be hurting a little bit because of the kind of the interest rates going on and the kind of, if you had any kind of floating rate debt, that could have pushed up a little bit, and that might be hurting some of your deals.
So when you were starting down this road, when we were talking about, the break room mafia, what kind of feedback did you get? Feedback from other docs that back to that, like, this isn't what people like us do?
I got that feedback even in when I was training in fellowship. I was already looking into other things at that point. I was reading books and I was asking my attendings about this, and they were like, "No, you're a physician. You're supposed to be doing, and you want to make more money. You should do more procedures."
As you started to, I guess I found that over time, because I kind of got the same thing. Everybody looked at you sideways, and then the more I dug into it, and the more I expanded my network on the real estate side and on the business side, and in the books I was reading, that it starts to put different voices in your head than just the doctors. Do you have any advice to docs if they're feeling like this pressure from the outside that this is a wrong path, as to how to build up the right network and the right voices in their head?
I think this might be a good time where I can chat about this concept called the Ikigai. So I think physicians, all of us, we should have this thing called an Ikigai. Ikigai is a concept from Japan. It's called your reason for being. And so sometimes there may be outside noise, outside chatter, outside discussions, but if you start meditating, start reflecting, start going a little bit inner, you can start hearing some of the inner wisdom. And so if we're all meant to do something great on this earth, I think, and I didn't know this growing up, but this is sort of something I've come to having a realization of. It's, if you can find this intersection of these 4 things, which I'm going to share with you, you will be in heaven. You will be in the zone. You will be doing everything you're supposed to be doing and enjoy the process and be paid handsomely for it. It's find out what you're really good at. Find out what you're passionate about. So your skill set, whatever the best skills you have, your passions, what does the world need, and what you can get paid for. And if you can sort of find that intersection of those 4 things, and you can't, sometimes it's hard to get all 4. Maybe you get 3 out of 4. But if you can do that, you're going to be on fire. And so I'll give an example in my own life. So I love just figuring out, I want to figure out where a person is in their life and their journey. I just want to up-level them. Why? I just think I can see greatness inside of every human being, and I want that to come out. And the reason why this is important is because someone saw something like that inside me and helped me bring it out. I mean, helped it come out of me. And so I just want to pay it forward. So that's number 1. I find I always enjoy doing that. Number 2, I love business, entrepreneurship, strategy, things like that. Number 3, I love health and wellness, and I love, doing those kind of things. And so I'll show you an example of how all of this coalesced. so as I was transitioning out of cardiology and into what I really wanted to do, which was longevity, functional medicine, biohacking, I did that because I want that for myself. I want to live a long time. I want to live to 120 to 150 if I can. I want to, even in my 50s and 60s, perhaps be like a high performer, like be able to do a century, 100-mile bike ride, Spartan race, etc. And so that was important for me. So as I started learning this, I'm like, oh, who else would want to learn this too? And so I created a clinic in Northern Virginia that was a functional medicine clinic where we reversed disease, got people off diabetes pills, did all that stuff, and then started taking them on the upward journey. And so that became a business because it was a passion that I enjoyed, I could get paid for, and I really liked doing, and I thought I was good at. Next thing was, okay, I like to find things and then improve them and take them to the next level. So that's real estate, right? So then I liked finding deals. I liked talking to brokers. I liked discussing. I liked thinking about strategy. And then I liked sharing these opportunities with other people, investors, and then bringing them along for the journey. And the difference between a single family person investor and a person like Mike who does large deals for industrial or retail is he's more generous. The more people he brings along, the more wealthy he becomes. The more people you help, the more wealthy you become. And so the key is to do things at scale. And similarly, like why does the CEO of the hospital get paid more money than the nurse practitioner, who works on the first floor? It's because the CEO of the hospital is managing 1,000 patients and the nurse practitioner managing 10, right? So it's by you doing scale, that's what, you can really grow. And so I went from single families to the multi, that's what we were able to scale and grow. And then the cool thing is by us, not only do I get paid, my investors get paid, the seller gets paid, the community is improved because we're pouring money into the property to elevate it. So that's awesome. And then now during the pandemic, what happened, Mike, is I was getting called by a lot of doctors all over the country. I was on podcasts such as yours, and they're like, "Hey, we're struggling. Hey, my surgical clinic is down. My center's down. Hey, I can't do elective surgeries. I'm worried. I want to have other types of income." And so I started like just having long conversations on the phone. I realized I was sort of coaching, I guess, and that led to another opportunity. And so to go back and connect it back to your point, Mike, if these physicians or other people listening to your podcast have a passion, have an interest, unpackage it, see what can come from it, because it may end up becoming a business, may becoming a stream of income, it may become something that they are really passionate about and give them purpose. And if you're going to get naysayers, realize that that's a good thing, because that means you're doing something unique and different, and you just have to have faith and overcome the because there's a quote I live by. It goes, the people who are some of the most greatest people in the world were first ridiculed before they were revered, and so you're going to be seen as crazy until you're seen as a genius. And that's what happened to Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, you name it. Everyone thought people were crazy until they realized, oh, this is the thing. This makes a lot of sense. And right now, it's not that crazy for physicians to do all this. Back, I would say 10 years ago, it was pretty crazy when I got started because no one was doing it then. Now I've seen a lot more people. There's conferences now. There's a Passive Income MD conference with my friend Peter Kim. There's a lot of real estate and medicine collaborations out there. There is White Coat Investor. All these books. Tom Burns wrote a book called Rich Doctor, Poor Doctor. So there's a movement now, guys, and it's not unusual to join.
That's great. And I kept thinking when you were talking about the Ikigai that there was a point where in medicine, all that came together for me, and then it didn't anymore. And that can be the scary point, to have to kind of redefine yourself midlife. And we never expected to have to do that as doctors. And so it's great to have, people like you who are offering things like your Limitless MD and opportunities to invest and to start to do something more, and have also been a mentor, somebody to look up to say, hey, look, he did it. I can do it too.
So Mike, let me ask you a question. how did you know that just being a urologist was not enough at this point?
I reached a few things happened all together. I kind of reached this point where I felt like as a surgeon, I had, I was off the logarithmic growth curve, that it was becoming routine. And so it wasn't as challenging and exciting. And then the outside hassles, the administrative stuff, the dealing with hospitals started to weigh heavier on me. And that was kind of the point that you looked at and said, well, guess what? Now anymore, to sell a practice, as soon as I stop going to work, the income stops. So my only choice is just keep my foot on the gas. I need to do something different, build something different.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then it probably didn't happen overnight. It was probably a slow realization. And then you're like, all right, now I have the realization. Now what? Right. And so, and what was your first step, would you say?
My first step, I'd always had this interest in real estate. My wife laughs because she was like, I remember moving and finding these real estate books, and I'd done some little stuff. And the first step was actually, we were looking for a second home up on Lake Superior. And I decided to buy a fourplex instead.
Nice. Smart.
and it was scary.
The journey.
Yeah. It was like this scary thing, like, I don't want to deal with tenants. But it was all part of the learning process of jumping in and doing it. And on that note, we're going to wrap up the first half of our conversation with Dr. Vikram Raya. So thank you so much for joining us today on Surgeon Syndicate. And thank you for this opportunity to help you all move along in your journey and maybe overcome some of this fear that we're discussing. Join us next time, because in the second half of this discussion, we're going to jump into the fear of making bad decisions and how to get past that. So join us for the second half of our interview with Vikram Raya here on Surgeon Syndicate. We'll get back to our show in just a minute, but first I want to offer you an opportunity to accelerate your learning. My life changed, and my ability to start becoming work optional changed when I gained the people and the knowledge to start investing in commercial real estate. One of the key people there was Ash Patel, and joining his Invest Beyond Multifamily Mastermind. Well, that mastermind is no longer open, but for a fraction of the price, Ash has now made a course. And this is probably the most valuable set of information and quickest way to move along your learning curve. So if you are interested in actively investing in commercial real estate and retail and industrial and office, I would recommend this course to you. We're going to include a pre-sale link both in the show notes. It'll also be on the surgeonsyndicate.com website. And in your checkout, it'll save you another 1%. I know it's not a lot, but every little bit helps if you use the discount code Mike1487. If you're not interested in investing actively, give us a call here at Fortress Capital, and let's talk about what your goals are as a passive investor. But it's time to stop listening, start acting, and let's move your future forward. This has been an episode of Surgeon Syndicate. If you got value from this episode, you know other surgeons are hungry to become job optional, and you can help them by sharing this content today. Schedule a call and we can make a plan. Looking forward to having you with me on the next episode.